So, sir, I would like to know, is hypnosis or hypnotherapy is scientific?
Let's very briefly understand, Ameeta, how does any hypothesis become scientifically validated?
Okay.
The start of the process, number one, is that an abnormal event happens. When we mean abnormal, it is something that doesn't fit into the paradigm of day-to-day life. That's what makes it a little abnormal.
Okay.
A scientist studies this abnormal phenomena that has happened,
Yes.
and then using his skills, his capacity to think, logic, analyze, rationalize, and create, he comes up with what is probably a theory of why and how this abnormal phenomena has happened.
Okay.
Beyond this, this theory is now tested in clinical conditions artificially to check whether the same abnormal event could be clinically re-stimulated or recreated.
Okay.
And if that is correct, if that clinical re-stimulation can be done, then the theory that the scientist has proposed to explain the phenomena stands validated by science. This is what we're looking at. Now, if we look at hypnosis as a phenomena,
Yes.
it is a little abnormal simply because as humans we have only understood two states of awareness. We are either awake
Yes.
and working, or we are sleeping. So in our day-to-day life, we are not necessarily in touch with this abnormal third state where a part of me is sleeping and a part of me is awake. That is the abnormal phenomena. Many hundreds of years back this was observed.
Okay.
And then came, through the centuries, especially after the 16th century, explanations from a variety of people who were working with mind sciences, starting from Mesmer to James Braid, doctors, who then started creating theories about how this state could be formed. The fact that it was happening was natural.
Okay.
And subsequently in time, in their clinical practices, in their experiments, they discovered that this was possible to be induced clinically
Okay.
and duplicatable by other people as well, which is from where hypnosis moved into the paradigm of hypnotherapy. Just for the record, we had the British Medical Association and the American Medical Association both accepting hypnotherapy as a very valid state for working with human states and human therapies way back in the 1950s.
Okay.
India as a country, since the last 2 decades, is now catching up quite rapidly.
Okay. So can you elaborate, sir, a little bit on the legality of the hypnotherapy in India?
Yes. So, since in India as well, people started observing and understanding that hypnotherapy as a tool was capable of producing some really powerful resolutions.
Okay.
And not just at the level of human behavior, but also at the level of human health, physical health.
Okay.
Classically, hypnotherapy or hypnosis has been looked upon as a part of psychology, which largely deals with the human mind.
Yes.
But over the last 20 years or so, people have also started working hugely on the psychoneuroimmuno axis, which seeks to establish an irrefutable connection between the human mind and the way we think and feel and its subsequent effects on the human body.
Okay.
And there's a lot of research and a lot of work happening in that area. Keeping all this work in mind, in 2002, the government at that time constituted a committee to evaluate and examine the vast modalities of healing that were being practiced in the country, because we've really seen in the last 3 decades so many different types of modalities.
Yes.
When we look at the law in India, for human health, the law is very clear. So if you are a conventional allopathic doctor, or if you are a homeopath, for example,
Okay.
or an Ayurveda Acharya, a yoga practitioner, a Unani practitioner, or a Siddha practitioner, or a naturopath, These are the different states of therapeutic modalities that the law permits to be officially used for therapeutic healthcare for humans.
Okay.
In 2002, 2 more states of therapy got added to this list. The first one being acupuncture and acupressure, and the second one being hypnotherapy. And this conclusion came from a lot of clinical research and clinical statistics, which means these could be practiced as states of therapy on humans for human betterment. The rider, of course, was that it should be practiced by technically proficient and competently trained people.
Yes.
If you were a practitioner of the previous arts that I mentioned, which is allopathy, homeopathy, etc., then you could seamlessly integrate hypnotherapy into your practice, and or if you came from a psychology background in your education. That is the state today where hypnotherapy can be apparently legally practiced if you have these backgrounds. I must, however, add that in this country, the domain of spiritual therapy is wide and open. And there are many different modalities, though not officially recognized as regular, bring amazing results for people. And we've seen that. In that context, for people who do not have a background that I have mentioned before, can still engage consensually, that means with the consent of another person, in a regular counseling setup, hypnotherapy can be safely practiced with the consent of another person. This is the status currently.
This gives us a lot of clarity. Thank you. So I also know that you're heading the institute which is called as EKAA, and we would like to know from you, sir, a little more about EKAA as an organization which is into hypnotherapy training.
Okay, so any introduction to EKAA would be absolutely incomplete without a reference to my teacher who brought all this work into this country. His name was Dr. Sunny Satin. He was an Indian. Subsequently, in the US, he stayed there. Founder of the California Hypnosis Institute in USA. I was his student. He brought the science here in 2002. And since the science started spreading fairly rapidly, he was the guiding force behind the establishment of what went on to become a legendary institution by itself, which is California Hypnosis Institute of India.
Okay.
And that was his brainchild, his backing. And that was registered in India so that this knowledge of hypnotherapy could be spread throughout the country. Subsequently, after he passed away in 2006, being one of the senior teachers and a very established hypnotherapist myself, I brought over the Indian chapter fully, which means I became titularly its owner and CEO. And CHII went on to benchmark new paradigms of hypnotherapy. Since I think from 2006 onwards, we must have trained so many students in different walks of life. And as the years passed, since of course we are Indians and we have a strange, and I would say sometimes exemplary knack of looking beyond the obvious, there's a part of us that always understands that this creation that we are in has some deep intelligence in it. There is a cause and an effect that affects our lives. So as the courses started flowing in India, in our curriculum, we started experiencing concepts that took us beyond the obvious, a little metaphysical, a little metaphorical, deeply seeped in the Indian philosophy. By about 2012-13, I thought that impact was deep enough to probably rebrand the organization to give it an Indian feel, because that's where it belongs now. So though its origin was from the US, the curriculum by itself has evolved into a much more integrated format, where we've taken the scientific tools that the West offers and combined it with the deep spiritual and esoteric wisdom that the East offers. And then as a part of the rebranding exercise, we were looking for a good Indian name that could best epitomize this work. And I stumbled upon the term EKAA, which by itself is one of the seed sounds of creation.
Okay.
In the literal sense of the word, EKAA means the only one. And when we talk of the only one in this context, it is also about the whole concept of what we are offering to people. It's a concept that can be beautifully integrated in day-to-day life, no matter which background you come from. So there are people who do our courses purely because they want to pick up a career in the science of hypnotherapy. And yet we have pilots, we have architects, we have housewives, we have students. We have so many people coming in who simply wish to live a better life. The amazing part of this curriculum is that it can be blended into anything that you think of doing, thinking, or feeling. So I have seen housewives' lives transform completely, just for themselves, by doing the curriculum. I have seen students benchmarking new paradigms of excellence, just by doing the curriculum. I have seen architects able to bring out revolutionary new designs by getting a deeper insight into the human mind. And these are the byproducts. We're not talking of mainstream who come to us just because they want to pick up hypnotherapy as a curriculum. So the term EKAA was its ability to blend into just about anything that you wanted to blend it with.
Okay. So it stands for
EKAA.
Yeah.
If you take it as a short form, the expanded form or our punchline would be Ekagra Karma Apara Antara.
Okay.
Ekagra means focus. We know that it's a Sanskrit term. Karma is action. Apara is infinite and Antara is all inside you. Which basically says that as humans on earth, our existence is surrounded by infinite possibilities. And it is focused action using the presence of our mind, our body and our soul fully that can help us to create a reality that we would love to live. So a focused approach to infinite possibilities is my punchline.
Interesting. Thanks for sharing this.